Good morning and welcome to Mindfully Gay. I'm Jerry.
And I'm John.
And we're here this morning, kind of excited. I posted the stupidest reel I've ever posted. It started out with help. And I cringe every time I listen to it. But so many people have responded with these amazing topics.
Yeah.
Stuff that we've talked about or kicked around, but we've never really focused on.
Right.
And so we're going to, next couple of weeks, we're going to focus on those topics. I know we have some guests lined out.
Yep.
We have some exciting, we have a retreat coming up in September, but we also have some other wellness retreats, nutritional workshops, heart circles, meditation. So start looking at the website. We're going to really try to amp things up for fall and winter, so that we're just not sitting home hibernating, but we're with community. But today's topic came from my friend in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
And the tune or the tone of what she was asking is, how can straight allies show up in support of queer communities, especially in this political era and this time we find ourselves. Right now, there's questions about if marriage equality is going to last.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of rhetoric that's being aimed towards gay and transgender communities. And so I thought that was a beautiful question. I know my friend, and she's a beautiful person. But yeah, how can allies show up today in support of I'd say lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender people who may be under a lot of duress right now. And one thing that I will say as a therapist, since November, when the election happened and we found out the results, and in particular, our transgender community, in many ways, it's like witnessing a trauma response. Like people have just kind of dived into committed fear and anxiety and uncertainty about the future, feeling as if their identities are being erased. Here in the last month or so, there's been a lot of energy about the Supreme Court potentially re-examining marriage equality.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of the rhetoric that's taking place is inflaming. There was just a hate crimes here in Salt Lake City where someone was seriously beat up and some very serious injuries occurred.
Wow.
And so we're just kind of seeing the 80s come back.
Oh, I mean, I'm getting anxious just hearing you talk about this, because I mean, I can relate to and understand that fear and that I don't know, the reaction to hide, to retreat, to
go back in a closet.
Just go back in the closet. I mean, it's just kind of going back in time. Just so many of our, rights that have been, so strongly fought for over the years and decades, feels like they're just being tossed away like there was just, pieces of trash.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing people say, I'm taking myself off of social media because I don't want to be tracked. It's very interesting times. Lots of anxiety. I think there's things that we can look at in reference to our responses. And yet the question seems to be aimed towards how can our straight allies, our cisgendered allies, how can they show up in support of and encouragement.
Right.
And I feel like I talk about this all the time in my office. So I have like this list. So you can go home now.
You got this? You got this?
I got
Take
it.
away.
I got it.
Take it away.
I don't know. Do we want to start with how we as queer folks are responding to all this? Or do we want to just dive right into here's how to be supportive?
Well, maybe a little of both. But what comes to mind is, because I think what some folks that are feeling that need to hide and retreat and take themselves off of social media, for example, I get the sense they probably feel very alone.
Yeah.
They feel very alone and not supported, right? Yeah, they may have some friends that are also in their own community, but they're also feeling victimized at the same time. And so it's hard to support one another when you feel like you're kind of going downhill. So that's the first thing that kind of came to mind, that, especially to our straight allies out there, just know that our gay allies, your gay allies out there, are probably feeling very alone. And this is when we need that broader community
Yeah.
to show up and help out. Yes, we've got our community, but I think we need that broader community to also feel like we've got some more folks on our side, right?
I think the first thing I want to say is you have to look at the power of privilege and the ability to see someone's experience. So, I used to teach social diversity and social justice at the college, and the
Right.
hardest thing, a significant population of my students were Caucasian and conservative.
Sure.
And when they would hear the stories of racism, of homophobia, of xenophobia, their first response was a place of disbelief, or they wanted to mitigate it, like it wasn't really happening.
It wasn't really happening. It's not happening
Right.
here.
In fact, I just watched a political show last night at HBO, and there was a conservative from Texas on there who just anytime any kind of ism was presented to him in terms of racism or even Christianism, right? To talk about somebody else's experience, his first retort was not one of empathy. It was to say, well, that happens to us too. And it's like the reality is, I think, I'll give you an example. Before marriage equality, people had witnessed Bruce and I together for 18 years. And it surprised them that we weren't married. And then once we did get married, it's like our relationship was only legitimate once we had the official wedding.
Oh.
Now, I've been married for 30 years.
Yes.
The straight world only recognizes it since 2013.
Right.
Right? And so I think my first counsel would be, how do we check our privilege to understand someone else's lived reality, right? One way of checking privilege, for instance, is as a Caucasian cisgendered guy, I've never had the experience of feeling like I was being watched or observed in a 7-Eleven or a store or something. And yet a lot of my friends of color will often make comment that they know that they're being watched differently. That's not an experience. I have actually seen that happen. But I don't know that I have ever experienced it. And so I have to rely on my colleagues and my friends when they talk about that lived experience to be able to hear it, to witness it, and to digest it as a reality.
And what does that take? Because I struggle with that a little bit too, with, kind of asking that question, or, can you step into my shoes, so to speak? But how? I mean, is it to be able to, I don't know how to say this, to be able to really step out of yourself, let's say, and really step into my shoes and get a sense of how this might feel to me if I'm being watched at a grocery store or something like that? Or is it a comparison like that guy on television you saw? It's like, oh, I've experienced that too. And is that a way to help relate to what my experience might be? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Look, I think this is just Jerry Buie speak. I think to understand the place of privilege requires me to witness and to listen profoundly, and to consider to hear the trials of someone else, I have to consider the privileges that are inherent in my identity. For instance, Bruce and I just came back from Provincetown in
Pennsylvania.
over there. Yeah. No, Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. Well, Pennsylvania.
And there was a lot of gay people there. And we found ourselves in this really comfortable space where we just naturally were holding hands. During a Pride Day event, we will hold hands. And it's almost like, but that is not something we do on a daily basis. That's not a privilege that we share outside of gay-friendly spaces.
Right.
Because of the fear of violence, right? And I think it's interesting how many times people have kind of evaluated the quality of our connectedness because they don't see the public displays of affection. And so when you explain to them, sometimes I find myself explaining, do you understand the challenges and the fears inherent with when we grew up, what the political climate is today, that's just not a safe option. It's often met with some kind of disbelief. Oh, that doesn't happen anymore. It's like, whether it happens or not, which it does.
Yes.
It is it's knowing that I live in a heteronormative society that, in its very core, marginalizes who I am to the point where I may not feel safe.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
It makes sense. That makes sense to me. It's being able to, regardless if it's, happening or not, right? That to be able to step out of yourself again and step into the reality of this individual and their perception and their way of living, that's when you're able to really, I think, get to bypass your own privilege and understand that this is this person's reality and life. It's for some, I think that can be an easy task to do, but I think for others it's quite hard. I even know gay people who struggle with that. They struggle with, well, more kind of a race thing. I'll talk about something that maybe has happened to me or what I've experienced, and their response is oh, people should just get along,
Yes, they should.
Like, no, are you listening to what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes, of course people should get along. And this is, I had this happen to me and I'm a little torn up about it. Are you hearing me?
Well, yeah, what's the ingredients of, so the question is, what's the ingredient of getting along? Let me see if I can make sense of that. Getting along could be an easy, platitude or comment.
Yeah, just a comment.
But in my mind, getting along means I have to somehow comprehend, empathize, be connected with your lived reality.
Yes, yeah.
Which means instead of feeling like my response has to be some kind of an explanation or counsel, might be more about, wow, help me understand that.
That, yes.
Yeah.
It's that. Rather than just kind of a flippant, just wash it away kind of reaction or comment, it's a lean in.
Yeah.
It's, tell me more about that. I really want to understand this. I want to know you.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's connection. Lean in, ask more, inquire. And that goes both ways, do that with your straight ally too. Go both ways. But because I think if that door is open and they're inquisitive with the sincerity, then you probably are going to be more open to share more about, your life and be a little bit more vulnerable and feel like, oh, I'm in a safe space with you. Right. And I think that's a big piece. That's an ingredient. You want that person, that gay person, that queer person wants to feel safe and not just kind of alone out there in the abyss.
Right.
But I'm held and understood and seen and heard. And I think that's the way in. it's helped me to understand that.
Charles, who we've had on the show once before, who's an elder and a mentor of mine, kind of his big platform these days is, are we truly witnessing each other?
Yeah.
Right. And
I like
and
that.
using witnessing as a shamanic technique.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you as a therapist, I have people who come to me who pay a lot of money to sit and to participate in counseling, and I often think what they're really seeking is somebody to listen.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that their problems or their mental health circumstances are beyond their control.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm hearing is I feel isolated and I'm not sure. I had a client say this to me yesterday, like, because I kept saying, how would you like me to show up? And they said, I just need to vent.
Yes.
I just need to get this out.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I try to talk to my friends about it, they're busy giving me advice.
Mm-hmm.
And what she was saying to me is, I want to be witnessed.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I believe in that wholeheartedly. When I'm doing counseling, it's the same thing. I get a sense people are just very anxious and they have these stories and these experiences. They just need to get it off their chest.
Yeah.
You know, and I just allow that. I say, hey, just vent. You don't have to make any sense.
Yeah.
Just get this off your
I'll
chest.
analyze it later.
Yeah. Right. You know, clear yourself, be clear so
Yeah.
you can feel good again and kind of, you know, continue down your path. Like, yeah, it's that.
So two things, right? And that is, how do I connect through acts of empathy,
Mm-hmm.
which require me to participate in some very deep, active listening
Yes, for sure.
and witnessing.
And witnessing, for sure.
And then that deeper work, which is hard for people who come from a lot of privilege. When I say privilege, meaning in this case heterosexist or cisgender, right?
Yeah.
Is can I experience? Can I understand how the world has been established to treat me as the normality, and anyone outside of that heteronormative lens is abnormal? I think those are two really powerful keys.
Yeah, for sure. It's making me think. I'm just kind of going back in time here. When I felt seen and heard, this is going back. You know, I came out publicly in college, even though I came out earlier. You know, I was in high school. I came out to myself, you know, maybe told a couple people, but I came out publicly kind of in a big way in college. But as a senior in college, you know, we had a senior ball, right? And I was out by this time, and I had some good friends from the dorms and our apartment and things like that. And I took a guy to the prom. And that was certainly outside the norm. I went to a Catholic university, and this is certainly outside the norm. And when I told my close circle of friends, hey, I'm taking my friend Mark to the prom, they jumped for joy. They're like, oh, John, that's fantastic. That's great. And hey, we've got your back. It was,
Good luck.
Yeah, you know, if anyone tries to give you any problems at the ballroom or whatever, we've got your back. I felt so seen and heard and held just from my friends just saying, we got you, John, you know.
Yeah.
It was just a very remarkable moment for me.
Yeah.
At my, you know, I was like 19 or whatever, how old I was, 20 years old. You know, this young gay guy in Catholic university and taking a guy to the prom. What? You know, and knowing that my straight friends were on my side, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I feel like I've got that today too. I feel like I've got a good host of, I mean, I would say a good handful, not a whole, you know, not a bucket full, but certainly a handful of straight friends who are able to do those things. They lean in, they sit, they listen, they try to understand my experience. And when I'm vulnerable and open and talking about some of the things I've experienced, both as a gay man and as a black man, because they want to understand, because they want to be there for me. And I think that's the underlying piece of it, is like they want to be there for me.
Yeah.
And if you can find people like that, you won't feel so alone.
Yeah. As you were talking, I had a couple of thoughts, and one is, I think if you and I went to an event, let's say, let's say a sweat lodge, right? Most of my sweat lodges are co-ed. Everyone and anyone's welcome to participate, and probably because we're gay men in this household, there's a pretty significant population of queer folks that come, gay, lesbian, trans. But there's a lot of straight folks here too. And one thing I notice is often those groups kind of self-regulate. Like the gay queer folks will kind of hang out in one corner, and straight folks over in another corner. And sometimes I think we go where we find the comfort, and I have found, especially because I'm hosting, right? It takes, I try to assert some level to kind of cross pollinate,
Sure.
right? And so I I don't think that's just a message for the allies. I think those who are queer identified might want to pay attention to when they find themselves segregating
Yeah.
and separating. And then the other piece is, again, I think if we showed up in an event, you, me, Bruce, some other folks would stand out as fairly confident in our identities. And for every Bruce, Jerry, and John that there is, there's probably 2 or 3 folks in the shadows who aren't as secure, who's probably watching. They're definitely listening. And it's interesting how many clients I have who come into my office who have some assessment of how their coming outness would be received, right? Maybe my family's super religious, and in the promotion of that religious doctrine, it's been very exclusionary of other people.
Yeah.
And so that queer person hears that and just says, well, you're going to be outside of my circle.
Exactly.
And so that allyship happens whether your queer friends are with you or not, because you don't know who else is listening.
Yes. Very true.
Yeah.
It's almost like we've got these little extra radars, and we are listening and watching for those kinds of cues, whether or not we can really be ourselves and feel safest in a certain environment because of how you might act or what you might say or even some of your beliefs. We're taking mental notes, and if not all the boxes are checked off, we're more likely to distance and not, pursue and share ourselves fully and freely.
I don't identify as trans or gender fluid. However, I find it so interesting, right? There's a lot of bias, usually built in some very profound misunderstandings around trans identities, right? And consequently, I don't think people fully appreciate the psychological impact of being misgendered or deadnamed, right? So misgendered is if I say to you, my pronouns are he and him, and you continually refer to me as her and she.
She, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
For me personally, sometimes the they and theirs is challenging because it's not like a natural flow of how my language is.
Right.
But if someone identifies as a they, them, and their, right, I don't understand the challenge. I don't understand the problem if you say I want to be known as Beatrice, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to work really hard
Mm-hmm.
to be committed to how you want to be seen and heard.
Exactly. You make an effort.
Yeah.
You're gonna make an effort.
It's interesting. My name is Jerry. It's always been Jerry, but some people say, so do you go by Gerald or Geraldine or right? It's like, no, it's Jerry.
Jerry.
And I'm really clear. It's Jerry or Your Highness. Right? And that seems relatively easy to do. But if someone says, hey, I want to be referred to by this particular name, and if it doesn't kind of fit my perception of that person, I don't understand why that becomes a challenge.
Yeah.
I don't understand even how that becomes a political dilemma,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Other than it's rooted in some really deep spaces of privilege.
Mm-hmm. It's saying I'm right.
Right.
And I'm not gonna change for you.
And if I misgender or accidentally use a dead name, as maybe I have gone by Jerry, but now I want to be known as Beatrice.
Yeah.
Right. And people accidentally use Jerry.
Jerry, yeah.
Right. That would be dead naming.
I see.
And I do believe I make those mistakes all the time.
Mm-hmm,
And when they happen, I will simply say, oh, excuse me, or I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
John.
Yeah.
Right. Or whatever.
Right. Right.
It just to me feels like a common courtesy that gets miscombobulated in the field of privilege.
Yeah.
And so I think allies, right, gay allies as well as cis and straight allies, this is something that we could improve on in relationship to our trans brothers and sisters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know it just boggles my
And
mind.
those in between.
Yeah, those in between. I love it. It just boggles my mind. How is this so hard?
Yeah.
Just put in a little effort. That's all you have to do. And I don't know. It just raises so much.
How's that making you feel?
Frustrated. It's frustrating because I see it, and like, how is that so hard?
Yeah.
Why is that so hard? This is a person. Show up.
Yeah.
And be a human with this other human. How is that so hard?
I always find it interesting. If I wanted to get a nose job,
Mm-hmm.
get my eyes fixed,
Mm-hmm.
breast implants,
Mhm.
like make a bigger pectoral situation, all those things I can go to my doctor, have a conversation, and within 6 weeks have the surgery, no questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm.
if I want to feminize my face, if I want to have breasts like a woman,
Mm-hmm.
if I want to do surgeries of this nature, somehow now I potentially fall into a diagnostic criteria. In fact, I have to be identified as having gender dysphoria
Oh.
to access any of those resources.
Oh my gosh.
As an older person, I may go out and seek hormone treatment like testosterone, right, to kind of boost whatever. But if I wanted to stop producing testosterone and have estrogen, I need a doctor. I need a psychological note. I need a doctor's note. It has to be approved, right?
Mm.
And I just find it so interesting
Yeah.
that there's that dilemma. And again, what I see happening is people get so locked into their lens about gender. Your penis equals boyness, right? And people seem to really struggle in understanding the level of dysphoria and psychological discomfort that comes with the idea that there's not congruency in how I see myself and what my body looks like. And so, yeah, I think allyship would be a more concerted effort
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
to embrace, understand, and be supportive of somebody else's lived reality.
Mm-hmm. That nails it right there. Just that. To understand someone else's lived reality. Because it does boil down to, we are human beings having this human experience. And can we just get along? Can we really support each other in this process? Yes, maybe it's gotten complex in recent years and decades. Sure. But I think we're savvy enough, smart enough, sophisticated enough to, you know, put those privileges aside and really show up for those folks who are probably having a harder time at this game,
Mm-hmm.
right? And hold their hand if they need it, give them a hug if they need it, stand by their side, go to those doctor's appointments if they, need support,
Yeah.
whatever it is. How can you really show up as that friend, as that true ally? And um, I was speaking with one of my clients, actually. This is not too long ago, and they were saying how hard it was for them to just make friends and connections and all of that. And I said something to the effect of, it's kind of a two-way street. It does take an investment on both parts in regards to nurturing a friendship, having dialogue, going out, whatever it is, making an effort to text or call or see each other. That it does take an investment and an effort to create and maintain a friendship.
Mm.
No matter what the configuration is, right, of who these individuals are. And they said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because I guess they were sensing then that, like, oh, I'm expecting the other person to make the effort, but I really haven't done much, right?
Mm.
And so I think it just kind of put into their head how it's a two-way, it's a dance for two,
Yeah.
And it goes both ways.
Um, let's. You want to talk politics for a minute?
Okay. I'll try to stay seated and not jump
Well,
up.
there's a thing that happens where it when people say, I have family members who love me. I have family members who came to my wedding. I have people in my life who are deeply committed to the relationship with my partner and I, who continue to vote in a manner that would marginalize, disintegrate, and limit my capacity to live with equity and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, a lot of religious dogma will say, you're welcomed in our church, but you don't get to have the full benefit, because at the very core of who you are is unacceptable to God. And so when people align themselves with those kind of social institutions, I find that I am reserved and hesitant
Yes,
to fully commit
absolutely.
in my relationship with them.
Exactly.
Because if you're willing to align yourself legislatively and religiously,
Mm-hmm.
if what you want to say is that who I am is a matter of moral difference, that leaves me disadvantaged.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I am fully legitimized in my experience with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I would get the sense that, on the surface, and it is very superficial, when they're saying, "Oh, but I love you, and you're my family member, or you're my friend," it's just thin paper.
Yeah.
If the underlying moral
Texture.
texture
Mhm.
is, like you said, these political and religious aspects, and if that's the base, then what's floating on top doesn't hold ground for me.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to, like, I may just be just as superficial with you. Just saying,
Yeah.
if that's how you're going to be with me, that's probably how I'm going to be with you. I'm not going to go deep with you if
Yeah.
that's the case. Knowing if that how you vote or how you see me or other people, maybe you don't see me that way. I don't know, but maybe you see other people that way. How is that any different? Then it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard.
Yeah. If you're aligning yourself with institutions and dogma that at the core seeks to marginalize and extinguish my identity, then I know where you're. I know where you somewhere you align yourself with that. You can't say, yeah, I can't. I really have no space for that. I'll allow people in my space and I'll be in relationship with them,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not going to get me
You know,
100%.
exactly. That's it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll have a type of connection with you, but you're not going to get 100% John
yeah,
in this story.
and that could be challenging because maybe it's your parents, maybe
Yeah,
it's your own children,
yeah,
maybe it's,
yeah.
um, yeah. I mean, in fact, I have to say, in some cases, I have relatives who are just like, "Oh, but I love you, I love you." It's like, then what that starts to feel like is a mercy kind of love. Like
Mm-hmm.
Jesus tells me I have to love everyone,
Yeah.
so I'm going to love you, but I'm not going to let you have any piece of the pie. I was like, well, fuck you.
I know my response is, well, okay, you know, because it just doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel authentic if they're just saying the words "I love you."
Yeah,
You know, it's just words. It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
words. Yeah, that's a tough one. It's making me go back. I'm thinking about before election, and there was a lot of people who were kind of on the fence. The folks, they didn't know if they're going to vote Democratic, they didn't know if they're going to vote Republican, and just trying to decide which way they're going to go. They went to rallies, they went to town halls, and the whole thing. And then and I just kept thinking. I heard other kind of social commentary about this as well. It's like, well, if you're worried about, let's say, like if you have a viewpoint about abortion, let's say, and you don't know which way to vote, you know, well, think about the women in your life, your daughter, your
Hmm.
your nieces, your friends, your neighbors. If you can't decide for yourself which way to vote, then vote for those people.
Yeah,
Vote for the people who really need that support, for example. If you can't, I mean, I think that's a way of stepping out of privilege too.
right.
It's like, well, how does that affect me? How does that affect me? Well, I don't know. I don't know. Well, okay, step out of self
Yeah,
and think about other folks who if we've voted a certain way, how detrimental it might be, or how maybe help can be on the way if you vote in a different direction.
here's a good example of how that privilege plays out.
Mm,
I cannot think of anything that I stand for moralistically or legislatively, politically, that would be exclusionary of any of my conservative friends.
right. Nothing.
Nothing would be excluded, right? And yet, if there's a party or a dogma, right, which I've always understood, I do have a little bit of a Christian background, but the primary commandment was, "Thou shalt vote against gay people."
Right?
Wasn't that the primary commandment?
Mm.
I thought it was love one another.
Love one another as you would love yourself.
Yeah, and
Greatest commandment.
so yeah, nothing that I do politically or moralistically goes against that concept. And so to me, it feels incredibly hypocritical to say I love you,
Mm.
but I don't agree with you in that you don't get those rights, and so I'm going to vote against you.
Mm.
Just save yourself the platitude. Stop telling me how much you love me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to experience that. So there's our political rant for today.
Oof.
What else? I think, what else can our allies do? Contribute to my personal fund. Can I bring up another thing? I'm on a roll here.
Here, go for it.
So you and I host these Mindfully Gay retreats.
Mm.
So Bruce and I have another website called inspiritcommunity.com.
Right.
And anything on inspiritcommunity.com is open to everyone who wants to participate.
Mm.
Pipe ceremonies happen once a month. Sweat lodges 1 to 2 times a month.
Right.
Trips to Peru, Mongolia, open to anyone who wants to come.
Right.
But if I have a mindfully gay retreat, if I'm going to have a retreat specific to gay men, why can't I come? Why can't I participate?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, the resistance when I say, because the work that we're doing in that particular community is meant to foster a place of healing, a place of reconciliation, a place of community and connectedness. And what I hear from those who feel like they're not being included
Mm-hmm.
is fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out.
And it's not necessarily met with this supportive nature.
Mm-hmm.
On some scale, we hear this about Pride Day.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why do they get to have a parade? Why do they?
Uh-huh.
Because we know what we're doing. And when you guys do parades, you mess it up. If you were nicer to us, we'd help you decorate.
We'd help you.
We would show you how to have a good time, but you're all too uptight.
Get some sequins on those coats. Come on.
Show some skin. We're going to love it.
Right? Oh, I'm hearing you.
But right? Isn't that the same, like, where's our straight pride? Well, it's the other 364 days of the year.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting. Correct me if you think I'm wrong about this. Those people who are vocal about that, well, why can't I go to that? Or why isn't there, a straight pride or whatever? Are the ones that I feel are, oh, how was I going to say this? That thinking about privilege, I think the ones who are not protesting and wanting to be there or wanting to have their own parade are able to, in some respect, maybe step out of their privilege and see that, oh, this is a wonderful thing for a community to bond and grow and connect, etc. I don't need to be a part of that. Or those who, and I want to also say, and I want to be careful with this, maybe it's just some insecurity there too. That why do you feel like you're missing out on something that really isn't yours?
Yeah. Do you know, I forget her name, but she wrote a book called White Fragility.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking
I
about.
certainly do.
But this concept of white fragility
I read the book too.
is basically saying, the book in particular is talking about when white folks are having to wrestle with the place of their privilege and their advantages.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this as a professor. I mean, people cry. People get in touch with this guilt and this grieving. Like, I had no idea. I remember as I began to realize the story of American history was told through the lens of the conquerors, right? And as I became aware of the other narratives around colonization,
yes,
thinking, oh my God,
right?
Like, it became very overwhelming.
Yes.
And this author started talking about white fragility.
Yes.
But look, I think that fragility exists in when heteronormativity is challenged. Right? There is a reaction of fragility.
Yes.
When male privilege is called out, right? There's fragility in I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're missing the whole concept of privilege.
You're missing it. Yeah.
And so I think this notion of fragility, which in my mind, when I was facilitating these classes, that fragility initiated a place of like interpersonal crisis. And in the window of crisis is window of opportunity.
Yeah. Change. Yeah. That's a breaking point.
Yeah.
For folks potentially. If they can recognize that fragility and have that emotional reaction, they're at a breaking point where there's great opportunity for learning, expansion of mind, etc., and concept and idea of other people's way of living.
Right. And I think, you see this politicized, that there are limited resources And therefore, because of limited resources, we have to somehow get our own or be protective. And the reality is that's a politicized notion.
Yeah.
And so I think what happens is when people have to look at their place of privilege, for instance, if men shut up more and gave space for women to be more articulate and vocal,
Mm-hmm.
how does that somehow delegitimize your place at the table? If we're allowing inclusion around sexual orientation, gender identity, racial identities, right? That how does that doesn't delegitimize anyone else's place at the table. It just
No.
means there's enough resource and enough space for us to share.
Yes.
And I find that in the concept of diversity is a lot of liberation
It
and
is.
insight and
Mm-hmm.
perspective
Mm-hmm.
that could really move us in some very profound places of consciousness and connectedness.
Absolutely. I mean, just think of the wars we could solve. I mean, just if we were not, if we didn't feel victimized or didn't feel, um, like you say, illegitimized at the table and insecure because you feel like, well, I want to have a say, and you feel fragile around that. When that's all gone and behind you, gosh, the ideas and that could just really flow,
Yeah.
and the expansion and movement, like you said, would just really flow, and at such an advanced pace. I believe it really is remarkable.
Maybe a retreat we have is ally recruitment and training,
Wow. Yes. Yes.
teaching our heterosexual companions to be more fluid and liberal in their relationship to others.
Yeah.
But I also think that would be very reciprocal.
It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be. It really does have.
Reciprocal?
Yeah, reciprocated, or
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
mutual. Yeah, it's reminding me again, going back to college. Um, I had a friend, and he was kind of in the arts, and I was in the arts, and he wrote a play, and he wanted me to direct his play. And it was just a fun experience. But anyway, this guy, who I really admired, I looked up to him because he was just very smart. He wrote this play and everything, and I just getting to know him a little bit better. And again, remember, I'm kind of a young gay at this point. And he knew I was gay, and he would make comments about other guys. He said he was straight, and I just presumed that he was, and just accepted that, and he accepted me as gay, so there was really no brainer, no problem. But he would comment on other guys' physiques and things like that, and it's like, wow, he's a very good looking guy. And it would kind of, all these question marks would just kind of pop up in my head, and thinking, is he gay? I'm thinking this, is he gay? What's going on here? So I got confused. But what it really boiled down to, this guy, he was just very comfortable with his own sexuality, that he could easily say, yeah, that's a beautiful woman, that's a beautiful man. It didn't have to do with being gay or straight at all. It's just, this is just, I'm comfortable with who I am, and if I see someone that's attractive, I might just say it.
Yeah.
And tell you, like,
Yeah.
oh, you're a very attractive man. It doesn't have to mean anything. And I found that as a very profound lesson, that if one, so I really felt safe with him because I could be myself, because he didn't feel threatened, because that was a fear of mine. Just I had to wear my masks and all do the things in order to feel accepted in certain situations. I can take my guard down with him because it didn't matter, because he was okay with himself. I wasn't a threat.
Yeah.
That's very refreshing.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like I want to say something to our gay listeners.
Yeah.
And maybe it's twofold. One is, I think we often take offense before we listen.
We'll get defensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wonder what it would be like for us to be so sure, just like your friend is sure of himself, if we're coming from a place of certainty about who we are,
Yeah.
that it gives us permission to listen to those who are trying to understand
Yes.
or may have the potential to be
Mm-hmm.
understanding.
Yeah.
Because and I'll give you an example. For
That's
many
good.
years, for
Mm-hmm.
about 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
I belonged to this group called Reconciliation and
Mm-hmm.
Growth.
Mm-hmm.
And half of that group were gay affirmative therapists.
Right.
We either identified as queer or uh, one woman in particular had a very gay friendly audience and clientele. Um, and then the other half were people who aligned themselves with conversion therapy,
Mm-hmm.
who were coming from deeply conservative think tanks.
Right.
And those of us who were gay, I believe, had very strong sense of identity about our gayness and queerness. And so we had to go into that situation being able to listen to those who might politically want to erase us, and to not jump at offense to everything.
Yeah.
But when I would have a reaction of what, right, or defensiveness, that gave me an opportunity to ask more questions,
Mm-hmm.
and then often to share without offense, to share, well, this is how I experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
When you say it in that way, I hear where you're coming from, but then the impact in me is this.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. There were times when we would talk about our lives in such a way that they couldn't. And so when they would share how that impacted them or how they perceived it, it gave us an opportunity to dialogue across the differences.
Yeah.
We actually were able to do some incredibly productive work
Mm-hmm.
in that group. That's why I
Mm-hmm.
stuck with it for so long. And when Bruce and I got married, but then we had like this big ceremony, at least 3 of those people on the conservative side came to my wedding. And it was interesting. I could see where I was standing. I would see where they were at and would just kind of visually check in with them. And they're like, because we had a very eclectic group, right?
Yeah.
And I could just see them do it like right. And it was so interesting because one of them, when we came back after our wedding, we had a meeting. Their response was, I've never been around so many gay people who were happy about who they were.
Wow.
Who were right? They had worked with people who were at such discord around their identity,
Right.
that they generalized
Yeah.
that all of us must have been at some discomfort around our identity.
Mm-hmm.
And when they came to that event
Mm-hmm.
and saw trans people and queer people loving and connecting with each other
Mm-hmm.
and feeling good about who they were, it was a teaching moment
Absolutely.
that could have been lost.
Mm-hmm. If they weren't there.
Yeah.
Right.
And they were there because they had enough of a relationship with me, quote, the enemy,
Mm.
that they trusted being there.
Yeah. Yeah. They took it upon themselves.
And I got some great gifts.
Right? Isn't that great? They took it upon themselves to invest, to break through whatever, blockade was in their way, and I'm sure in your eyes that was quite remarkable. Like, wow, they showed up.
I think they trusted that they could be held energetically and not be perceived as a threat.
Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating. And I think a situation I think that's very common with this kind of experience is, your coming out story, a person's coming out story or process. Knowing that probably for some, I know for me, it took years of just processing of just, what is this? What's going on in my body? Why am I thinking this? Why is that attractive to me? I mean, just years of that on my own by myself until there was that moment of, okay, I'm gay, and
Yeah.
coming out to myself. And so, and starting to learn and be okay with who I am personally, right? And then later on, finding, the people that I can trust and start telling my story, right? But when you do come out, because you have maybe got to a point where I know who I am and I'm comfortable with who I am, and I'm going to share that with you. Sometimes there might be an expectation, well, you should just automatically accept me.
Yeah.
I'm being open and honest and just accept me. When it might be devastating, or just hard for that other person to hear, especially if it's a parent, right? That they have to go through their own coming out process. They may be very willing and wanting to be there for you and support you in any way that they can, but there's going to be this little turmoil first of I don't know how to I wasn't expecting this. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to do this. And if the queer person is getting defensive and offensive and all of that, well, you should just accept me. That's not going to help the process. What I heard you talk about with those colleagues of yours was there was dialogue. There was dialogue and the opportunity to speak from their own perspective. Using the kind of those therapist terms, use I statements. How does that make you feel? And use I statements. And so it doesn't feel like an offense or a pointing of the finger kind of thing. I think that's what a dialogue can really be in this realm, right?
Yeah.
And movement can be made, shifts can be made.
Do you know this group? We did a lot of sharing back and forth. We each kind of took a session and gave our story, and we allowed ourselves to be interviewed in the context of our story. And somewhere, in the early part of this group process, but probably within the first couple of years, my daughter got married. And at that time, the Mormon Church had a policy that so if a Mormon couple gets married in the temple, only worthy members of the church can go into the temple.
Exactly.
And so here my daughter is getting married, and Bruce and I have to sit in the waiting room. We don't get to be part of the wedding. Now that policy has changed since then.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. But the church would not allow an alternative to that, other than they could get married civilly, but then they would have to wait a year before they could go to the temple. And it really was set up as, if you're part of the Mormon community, it's like, you're kind of socially disgraced if you don't get married in the temple. And so, and my daughter chose to get married in the temple.
Yeah.
And I was expected to be in the waiting room. And that was devastating to me. That was painful. Yeah. And to this day is a leverage of hurt. And I brought that to that group because I wanted them to hear the impact, of being historically labeled as unworthy to pray with my daughter, to bless my daughter, to participate in the rituals of her religion.
Oh, it's me.
Everyone else was worthy, but Dad is not quite up to par.
It just gets me.
And I explained it in great detail. And what was really interesting is to have the Mormon folk who were listening to this, some of them were moved to tears.
I bet.
It was painful for them to hear. Yeah. Painful partly because they assumed that privilege and it wasn't questionable to them until they had to hear my story. And then it put them in a really challenging situation. And I think part of the challenge was, do I moralistically stand up for my friend, or do I align myself with my religion through the eyes of obedience and not question it? Which was a really challenging dilemma.
It is.
But for me, I felt like it was relevant for them to hear.
They needed to hear that.
They sat there when we had the massacre at the Pulse nightclub, right? For them to hear how the perception of religious rhetoric feeds into that kind of mass murder situation, right? And then on the other hand, we also had to hear from them what it was like to have their religious identity disparaged through protest, through editorials that were highly critical of something that they considered highly sacred.
Exactly.
And for me to hear
Mm-hmm.
how they must interpret that when I become politically activated in a way that seems counterintuitive to what they hold as sacred.
Yeah.
Right? It was a lesson on both ends.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think that's a challenge that requires a layer of spiritual shamanic medicine at both ends.
At both ends.
And I think the challenge today is the level of consciousness leading us right now is infantile.
Oh my gosh, to say the least. But that captures it. That captures it.
And what's interesting is how we all get seduced into the argument and the protest, as opposed to what happens when we own our place of our individualistic power and strength. So much so that I'm going to hear your story and witness that story and still respect you as an individual if that story is counterintuitive to who or what I think is in my best interest. I think there's some medicine in that.
There is.
And I believe that the universe, God, spirit, creator, whatever, is calling us to show up in a more evolved state of existence.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it starts with listening.
Starts with listening, active listening. And I think, kind of coming back to just allyship across the board here, across the aisle here, so to speak, it begins with active listening and showing up for that other person, knowing and understanding the impact of certain things on that person, to understand the life experience of that individual. That's true allyship. Mm-hmm. When those things, among other things, are part of the equation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope this is information that's useful to the listeners. I hope our friend who sent that request heard something that hopefully they weren't expecting, but stimulated a new way of looking at things. And not just our friend, but I think my friend was reflecting a question I hear in many other places.
Sure.
And of course, we're just doing this off the top of our head. If we had a PowerPoint, it would probably be much more profound.
And that's what we do here. We love that you give us suggestions on topics, so keep sending them in. We're just making a lovely list of all the things that you would like to hear us talk about, so we'll keep them coming in. And because it is just a conversation. It's just Jerry and I coming together, just giving our thoughts, our life perspective. I'm sure we're missing some things, and if we are missing some things, let us know. Chime in, help us out, fill in those gaps. This is let's continue the dialogue. That's how we have allyship with one another and form community. So again, just thank you for all the topic ideas.
So look for us at mindfullygay.com. On Instagram, we're mindfully_gay. On Facebook, I believe we're just Mindfully Gay Guys.
That's it. And TikTok. TikTok
is loving us.
Hi, TikTok.
And then we have a retreat in September. We're currently looking at like meditative yoga, health related retreats.
Yeah.
That we actually have a guest coming and joining us in January that we're going to announce soon. But this is a national person who loves the idea of Mindfully Gay and has agreed to come and do a day retreat with us.
Yes, I'm excited for that.
And she's really giving us a deal too, so hopefully it's accessible for folks. But we're really excited about what's happening, and we want you to be part of the dialogue. Even if you don't like what we talked about, when you go to your next brunch, talk about it.
You know what those guys talked about?
Can you believe the bullshit coming out of them? So anyways, we love you guys, and we'll see you soon at mindfullygay.com.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Mindfully Gay podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. This way, you won't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes where we continue to explore fascinating topics and share meaningful stories. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next episode.